Hello everyone. We are representing AnalyticsLiv, one of the top 5 Google partners of India, holding partnership for Analytics, Tag Manager, and DV360. We create an impact on all the touch point that a user can have a brand. In this journey, first party, the data plays a huge role in decision making and strategic optimization. So I'm Shubhangi, account manager, and with me today is Anshul, who is in GTM expert, and Abhishek, who is GA4 expert. So if you have any questions or concern during the session, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will definitely address them in the end of the session. And also, please let us know like what you are expecting from this session and what are your interests. You can put them in the chat as well. So let's begin. So Abhishek, can you please help us with the topic of today's webinar?
Yeah, Shwangi, sure. First of all, thank you so much for such a wonderful intro, I wanted to say. And so today in this webinar, we will be discussing about Google consent, where we will explain the difference between the basic consent versus the advanced consent to help optimize your data strategies. So in this webinar, we will be covering basics of Google Consent Mode and discuss how you can optimize your data collection while staying compliant with your
Mhm.
privacy regulations. Also, if needed, based on today's feedback and audience questions, we will definitely plan a follow-up session
Great.
uh, to advanced topics. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We will be breaking down the difference between basic and advanced consent mode and sharing insights on how to actually effectively implement consent mode on a website. So I think let's start.
Absolutely. Let's get started. So, with the increasing focus on data privacy, managing user consent has become a crucial task for website owners and marketers. So consent mode was introduced to help with this. But I think there is still some confusion about the differences between the basic and the advanced mode. So can you give us a quick overview on that?
Yeah, all right, Shwangi. Let's start with understanding basic consent. What is consent? So, what exactly does consent means when we are talking about website or an app? Well,
Hmm.
it's all about a user giving their clear permission to the site to collect, process, and use their personal data. It's a big part of online privacy and ethics. So now, if we think about GDPR rules, if you have heard about it, they're pretty strict, and when it comes to personal data and tracking, definitely. So, because of regulations like GDPR and CCPA, Google designed consent mode to help website comply. For the viewers who don't know about GDPR and CCPA in our panel, so GDPR or the General Data Protection Regulation is a European Union's law which focuses on protecting information privacy with the European Union, or we can say European economic areas. It's a major part of European Union's privacy and human rights law. Same if we talk about CCPA, which is the California's Consumer Privacy Act. This law is all about enhancing privacy rights and protecting consumers' information for the people in California, US. So, Shubhangi, can you help us with what is basic consent mode and what are its features?
Definitely. So basic consent mode relies entirely on whether user accept or decline consent for data storage and advertising. So previously, if you have observed in consent mode version 1, once a user gave permission, we set values for analytics storage and the ad storage. This meant we would store data for analytics purpose and manage ads based on user consent. Now, if consent mode ensures that all data handling is based on the user's choice, talking about the features now. So it is entirely like easily implemented, like very easy to implement, and it really doesn't require much technical expertise. And Google Tags only load and start collecting data after a user has explicitly given consent. Also, it is great for ensuring compliance. It doesn't provide as much data for optimization or measurement. So this is also ideal, you can say, for website which require basic tracking needs. We can say like a website with low traffic.
Okay. So I think it sounds like, Shwangi, if I'm not wrong, it sounds like basic consent mode is a very good starting
Yes,
point for
yes,
websites who want to be compliant with the privacy laws and regulations without getting too technical.
exactly. But it does come with some limitations. So which
Okay.
is where the advanced consent mode comes into the picture. So let me also mention some of the limitations. So we have limited control, which doesn't let you control the specific tag are activated based on the different consent choices, which makes it harder to manage. And other I can say is there is also a risk of non-compliant data collection. So if that is not set up properly, basic consent mode might lead to collecting data in ways that doesn't follow privacy laws like GDPR and CCPA, especially in areas with strict rules. So speaking of which, let's also talk about advanced consent mode. What makes it different?
So, Shubhangi, if I talk about advanced consent mode, it is, I will say, it is designed for those websites that need more control over their data and more insight. Like the people who are very serious about related to their data, their audience. So, if I talk about advanced consent mode, it's more technical. Like it
Okay.
needs detailed configuration, not as consent mode, but it requires a little bit expertise. So unlike basic mode, the tags also load as soon as a user visits the website, even before consent is granted. So in advance, your tags will fire as soon as the person loads the website, unless the basic consent mode. Then it collects data from both consented and non-consented users. But definitely, you cannot collect all the data. There are some privacy
Hmm.
restrictions in place as well. Then this mode offers more granular control over the data, as I mentioned earlier as well. So providing richer insights definitely. It's also, I would say, better for those websites, as I mentioned earlier, which has a very advanced tracking. Also, the people who are very data driven and needs all the interactions that are happening in the website. So it's for people who have a
Hmm.
strong focus on data driven marketing, I would say.
Okay, so it looks more complex, but it also offers more flexibility and data for those who need it.
I would say precisely, it's all about finding the right balance for your website needs.
Okay, so to help everyone understand this better, let's compare the two modes side by side. So, can you walk us through the key differences?
Yeah, of course. Like in basic consent mode, tags loads after consent is given, as I mentioned earlier. But in advance,
Okay.
it loads immediately as soon as the user visits the website. Then basic consent modes collects data from users who have given the consent, whereas advanced takes from both, whether consented or non-consented. Basic mode provides very limited data, whereas advanced mode offers more data. Then basic mode is quite easy to implement if we talk about in comparison with the advanced mode. Then, as mentioned earlier as well, basic mode is for those who doesn't require that much amount of data. But advanced mode is for someone who is really inclined towards their data and they need sophisticated tracking, I would
Hmm.
say.
Okay, so that makes it clearer actually. So we can say the choice really depends on the specific needs of the user and the capabilities of the website.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's important to consider both your technical capacity and your data requirement when choosing between the both.
Okay. So now let's talk about what happens if advanced consent mode is not implemented. What is the impact on data collection, specifically in Google Analytics?
See, if advanced consent mode isn't implemented, Google Analytics or Analytics won't collect personal data from users who haven't provided the consent, the first thing. So it is important to understand the quality and the scope of your reports will definitely be affected. So some of the key areas I would say is suppose reports that rely on individual user data, such as user ID or demographics, may have limited or no data. Like we do in our clients in analytics, we do for our clients a detailed user ID implementation, as you know. So they can check every individual journey. So that data won't be there. It will affect your conversion tracking. Comparing audiences across different segments will be very difficult. Then reports that completely depends on specific data points won't be collected. So there will be lack of data because of not implementing the advanced consent model.
Correct. And with the help of GA4, so with the consent mode V2, Google can also use data modeling to give
Yeah.
you some insights on that, like without the full consent. Analytics uses data modeling to estimate missing data. So based on those pattern and trends observed in the data that is available, some of the techniques, let me mention some. So first one is the predictive modeling, which uses historical data to predict the future behavior, or we can say the missing data points. And the next one is imputation. So where filling in the missing values with the estimated values. So based on statistical methods. And the last one is the sampling. So a subset of data to represent the larger population or the users, we can say. So that is a big advantage for those who still want some level of data insights while respecting the user consent.
Yeah, like exactly. It allows you to strike a balance between compliance
Yes.
and data-driven decision making.
So now let us shift our gears and talk about implementation of any consent management platform that helps manage cookie and privacy preferences. So can you walk us through the setup process in general, like for any platform which we can go through?
Yeah, of course, like setting up a tool is, I would say, quite straightforward and easy. It's not that difficult. So you can start by selecting the plan that best suits for your website needs. Then you need to, they'll share the script, and you need to add the script provided for the website header. Then you have to customize the appearance, language, and consent based on your website needs. So this step is like optional, but it is good if you do that. It will be coming up in the next slides why it is so important. And of course, at the end, you should test and deploy it at last.
Okay. So it sounds a pretty comprehensive solution for managing consent on your website. So this only not only like ensures compliances with regulations like GDPR and CCPA, but also enhances user experience and data quality, ultimately benefiting the business in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Like such tools are powerful, definitely. And especially, I would say if we integrate this with Google Tag Manager, the GTM, the power it becomes superpower from Clark Kent to Superman.
Okay. So when you say GTM, so let's talk about the integration with Tag Manager. So to explain this, we have Anshul, who is our GTM expert and the consent management expert also. So over to you, Anshul.
Yeah, thank you, Shubhangi and Abhishek. So as Abhishek mentioned that now we have chosen a CMP plan and we have implemented the CMP code into the website. Now we have to move towards GTM to configure the rest of the setup. So first we have to make sure like the GTM is configured properly on the website and it is getting loaded as soon as website loads. So there should not be any such delays. And so we are especially talking about the advanced consent mode implementation. So first, as I mentioned that we ensure that the GTM is loading properly, and we are seeing that we are getting the consent signal from the CMP partner, and then we will create GTM variables. So means to create variables in GTM to store the consent preference, allowing you to dynamically control data collection based on user consent, which means we will like we will store the preference because every CMP creates a cookie in which they store all the preferences given by user, and we will create a variable which will pick up the that first party cookie, and on the basis of that we can create further logic and that we can implement to triggers. So yeah, the third step is to implement the consent logic, which I was explaining. So we have to implement the consent logic in GTM to trigger tags only when user have provided explicit consent for specific features, which means if they are allowing like to transmit data to marketing platforms, then only we should send those data to marketing platforms, or if they are allowing it to if they are allowing analytics cookies, then only we should send data to analytics platform like GA4 Mixpanel and other tools. And the final step is, because although we have configured till now, but we have to make sure that we are compliant, because as Abhishek mentioned that there are hefty fines in some areas. So we have to test it very thoroughly to ensure proper functionality, and the data collection tool should respect the user consent preferences. Yes, over to Abhishek. Yeah, for the this one.
Yeah, so I would say, see, consent banners like nowadays are really important. So not
Yes.
just we think that only for meeting the privacy rules and things, but if I would say it is also for shaping how users feel when they visit your website. Like for many users, this is their very first interaction with the website. So it can set the tone for the entire website, I would say. So when done right, a consent banner doesn't just check the compliance box, it also helps user feel like they are in control of the data. So when we, and of course about their privacy. So whenever we share it in a way, they will feel like, yes, they are keeping in mind about our privacies as well. So I would say optimized consent banners go a long way in building trust and creating a positive experience in terms of our users through the website.
Okay, so Abhishek, on this, I have a question. So, are there
Yeah,
any best practices for making this consent banner more user friendly?
yeah, of course, Shwangi. Let's start with using clear and concise language. This means like sticking to simple, straightforward words and like things that everybody can easily understand. It's really about making the message accessible to all the users, no matter about their background. So it should be that easy to understand.
Okay, so that makes sense. And also, how about the design side of the things?
Yeah, good question. A user-friendly interface is like the key to your website. So the banner should be visually appealing and easy to navigate. So if it looks nice and is well organized, users are more likely to engage with it rather than ignoring it.
Okay, and just last question. So
Yeah.
that is instantly popping up in my mind. And what about the transparency with the users?
So, transparency like is very crucial. So, whenever like we are taking someone's data, we are having control of someone's data. So, we should clearly explain the user what type of cookie are in use and how it will benefit the user. So, this helps us build the trust among the users who are visiting our website.
Okay, so that sounds really important for
Yeah.
the users as well. So,
Yeah.
do you also have any like final points which you want to highlight on this?
Yeah, I would like want to share a quick tip. So while like creating your banners and everything, at that of at that time, please make the accept button prominent. The button should stand out among the banner, definitely, which is the accept button. So the user comes and clicks it. Like it's all about simplifying the process for them.
Okay, so that's actually a good point.
Yeah.
And what are like we can say some key ways to enhance the design of the consent panels?
Yeah, see, there are some important aspects. Already I have mentioned some, but again, I'll mention that we should focus on a visually appealing design. It means like using colors, fonts. If you want, you can use images, and also it should align. It should match how your website design is, or your website's your brand is. So a cohesive design helps the banner feel like a natural part of the site. But generally, that is not the part of the site, right? So it should feel like, yeah, it's the part of the site. So next, we should implement positive messaging. It's like essential to highlight the benefits of why a user should like accept the cookies. So that like this kind of a approach encourages the acceptance by focusing on the positive rather than just compliance. Also,
Oh,
like you should adopt a minimalistic approach. That is crucial. We want to keep the banner concise and avoid overwhelming users with too much of information. A clear and simple message makes it way more easier for users to understand their choice without feeling like too much backed down with data.
okay. So I have a point on this. So I think it is also important to focus on improving consent acceptance rate as well. So I guess Anshul, can you please also help us with this? Explain in
Yeah, yeah,
detail.
yeah. Yes, yes, sure. So we should really focus on improving the consent acceptance because, like, first point is the user trust. So by respecting user privacy and obtaining consent, so website can build trust with their audience, as Abhishek mentioned. So because we are clearly showing which cookies we are using, which cookies we are not using, and we are taking explicit consent before it. So that's obviously help in gaining trust from the users. And second is the personalized content. So after accepting the cookies, we can use cookies to get some personalized content on the basis of like what their user journey was, or we have some data from their cookie and we can take that data and put it in our CMS or some backend, and we can provide some recommendation also on the basis of that cookie. Obviously, if we are storing some data in the browser itself, and so we don't have to hit the server every time to get some data, and it will obviously affect the load times. So it will impact the load times. We will have a faster load times for some scenarios, not everything, not everyone. And obviously we will have a better analytics data. So the accurate cookie consent helps website gather reliable analytics data, which can be used to make data-driven decision and improve performance. We will use that data. Marketing team will use that data. Analytics team will use that data, and we can have a great dashboard, and we can have a because it depends on the acceptance. So some suppose 50% users are accepting the cookie consent. So we will have a huge data gap between to run any model. So we should be focusing on that to have an improved consent rate so that we will have a great data model which we can build on that data. And last one is very important for marketer, which is targeted advertising. So
Yeah,
if there are first party cookies, or that way, that because that help us in remarketing those users to have some to like call back to them, call back to like to visit our website again and again. So cookies are essential for targeted advertising, and which will obviously generate high click through rates, and that at the end it will generate a significant amount of revenue.
I think Anshul, the people who have attended from the campaign side would be delighted to hear that.
Yes, yes, obviously they are relying on the data, and they have to make decision every day, every hour based on the data. So if they are
Yeah,
not getting sufficient amount of data, then it's very hard to optimize the campaigns and get the result that client want.
absolutely.
So now we will discuss although Abhishek has mentioned very briefly, but I will just focus this on this point again. So how can we improve the cookie consent acceptance rate? So first, maintaining the same language and font of the consent banner as with the website. So we will create a banner that looks like a integral part of the website. So that creates a better user experience, and we will have a same language. So suppose, for example, in the screen you can see the consent banner is also designed in the French language, so that the user who are coming from who knows only French language will be able to understand what we are asking, and he will be going to accept. Otherwise he will get confused, or he will close that banner, and we will miss those data. And the second point is like where we have to create very simple user friendly interface. We don't have to give extra information, we don't have to give less information, and also we have to put some psychological color also, like to have a affirmative color for accept button, so that they by default, as soon as they come to website and they see the banner, their mouse should be going into the accept all cookies.
Yes,
That's also our target, to get more and much enriched data. And the third point is, because every country has different laws, and we have to stick to the laws, and we have to make like sure that we are maximum we have to make sure that we are minimum compliant. Like we should be complying only what is required, we should not over compliant, because that will cause data like to be collected less as compared to what if we are complying at very, like if India, for example, India, we don't have such strict laws, so we will have a different kind of data strategy for this reason. In EU and in California, we have very strict laws, so we will have a different data collection strategy. Similarly, there are some other areas also. We can divide the world into three regions. So first, we will take like where where it is necessary to show the consent banner, and default consent is taken as denied. So I'm not talking about default consent, which we are talking. If we are talking about the updated consent. So default consent for every reason will be denied as always for advanced consent mode. But there is also one consent signal, which is update signal, which is we have to take it. We should not push that data until they are providing any consent for the first area, which is the GDPR and EU, where the law is very strict. So we have to follow that law. So we have to show the full banner like this one, where we are showing like they can accept the cookies, they can accept only necessary cookies, and they can adjust their preferences, and they can deny it, like no, I don't want to give my data to analytics cookie, or I don't want to generate the marketing cookies. So that's the area number one. The second area is like where we have to show the consent banner, but the default consent can be taken as granted. So although we will show the banner there to them, to those users, but we will start tracking as soon as they are coming to website, but they have option to reject the cookie, and we will then stop the tracking thereafter. We will delete the consent ban. The CMP platform will delete the cookie if they don't allow later on. And similarly, third one, which is we are in India, so we will consider that. So it is not necessary to show the consent banner for Indian users, and default consent is taken as granted. So we just have to show a small banner or a message that we are using those cookies to give you a best experience on our website, and they can now click on the that banner, and they can later on decide which cookies they want to have or they don't want to create, and then after that we can we can change the tracking behavior on that. So if they are not allowing, then we can stop the tracking for that. But by default, everything will be tracked if they are coming to the website.
Yeah,
So
Anshul,
then the last, yeah,
yeah, so I got a question in my mind. So if suppose I have a website which is global, like it's all around the globe, irrespective of the countries, then can I like configure it differently for different countries or region? So suppose
yes,
if
yes,
it's in
yes.
Europe,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Suppose if your website is in India, you have built it in India, and your website is also registered in India, but your audience is coming from different kind of regions, whether it is GDPR compliant region or CCPA compliant region. But so because it doesn't, the law belongs, like the law we have to follow what the users are coming from. So we have to compliant of their laws, not our laws. And all the CMP platforms like OneTrust, Cookies, and Cookiebot, they provide some templates, and we can configure a tag, the ruling, the rules and templates there. So we can comply, we can put a rule for the CCPA and GDPR that this banner will be shown on the basis of IP address. The CMP platform will determine from where these users are coming, and they will accordingly be shown to, like, what should be shown to them according to the rules that we have set. So if we are
okay,
putting out that we have to show a banner, a full size banner for a person coming from a GDPR area, so it will automatically detect the IP address, and it will show the full size banner to them. And suppose if a user is coming from India, they will have that IP tracked, and they know that that this user is coming from India, so they will show the rules that we have configured for this area. And that's very
okay,
powerful, application of CMP. So they have
yeah.
provided a very good application and good feed. It is very good feature.
So I think it will be tough for the scenario I mentioned, or is it very
No, no,
easy?
it is not very tough because they already have pre-built templates, and they already have pre-built location. Like they already grouped the location in their platform.
Oh,
So we just have to select, and it is a like drop down we are selecting. So we have to select which rule we should apply to which region, and it is very easy. And we can, like, it's not very tough. Uh, I think we can very easily define those rules and template, and we can also modify the template, as you mentioned that all the things that we have mentioned previously, like the language is also automatically detected, and
yes.
CMP gives this feature also that the consent banner will get populated automatically on the basis of the local language of the user.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful.
yes, we don't have to do anything. Yeah, we have to provide which font we are using, font size, cut color, button color, and this kind of things we should be providing. Apart from that, everything will be automatically populated by the CMP.
I guess the language point is really important because I have also seen some of the scenarios where the buttons are in different language
Yes,
and
yes,
the details are in different language. So that is an important point.
yes,
Yeah, even I have
definitely.
observed that. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the last point is because uh, every user, like every website has different kind of audience. Sometimes depends on geographical, demographical. Like some users, for some website, we are getting 90 to 95% of acceptance rate. But the same audience, we have a parent website or a sister website where they are going and they are like giving only 50 to 55% of acceptance rate. So how do we optimize this one? And it's not like we can do, like, yeah, just make this color red or black, and that will not work. So we have to do A/B testing. We have to make multiple variants, and we have to test again and again, and we will have some data like this template given as like 90% acceptances, and this template is really not working. It is only giving 50% rate. So apart on the basis of the data of A/B testing, we will finalize a template, and we will have that template finalized on the website. Then we don't have to do A/B testing. But yeah, again, something comes up in future, and we are seeing that the users acceptances is dropping, then we have to again do this A/B testing and finalize the new template according to the user behavior, because user behavior nowadays is like dramatically changing, and we have to
Yes.
make sure, and we have to uh, like it's something like we should, it's something not like that we have created a banner and just leave it for years and years, and we have to check the data, and we have to make changes and again to get maximum acceptance rate. You can see in the screen, so they have two variants, and one of the variant is getting 95.3, another is also 95.3. So in this way, like
Yes.
we can have that, yeah, both variants are doing fine. On the basis of this data, we can finalize any one of them. But if there is huge difference, then we should be only accepting the variant that has a good opt-in
Better
percentage.
percentage of acceptance.
Yes, yes. So we have already discussed, but we will go into some technicality. So how consent mode advanced works. So as Abhishek has already mentioned and Shubhangi already mentioned that when a user visits a website using advanced consent mode, Google tags load immediately. We don't wait for the user to give consent. It will load immediately when the user is arriving on the website. The default consent is denied unless you have set your own defaults. We have an option to set default, even we can set default consent as all accepted. We have such option, but it should not be there, but it's customizable. The next thing is the cookieless ping. So while consent is denied, till the consent is not given by the user, till the point where the consent is still denied, the Google tags send the cookieless pings. These pings contain non-identifiable and aggregated information about user interaction, like country, timestamp, browser type, device type, which page or website did we come from, and indication of ad clicks, whether we got here by clicking on some ad like GCL ID parameter, FBCL ID parameter. Do we have such parameters on your landing page URL? And the conversion type also, if suppose if the user have not given consent till the purchase or till the final conversion also. So we will have such kind of information in the cookieless ping. And finally, the user interaction. When a user interacts with the consent banner and grants consent, so Google tags send the full measurement data. So now we were earlier sending like not full measurement data. We were sending only the required data, which is required for Google to generate the modeling on the base on their side. But once
Okay.
they accept the consent, we will send the full measurement data. Likewise, we were sending earlier when this concept was not there.
Anshul, here, like cookieless ping is sounding new to me. So I
Sure,
hope you are
sure.
going to make us
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand this in detail.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I'm
curious
explaining it
about
in
it.
detail. So
Okay.
cookieless pings are anonymized data packets that collect limited and non-personal information about the user interaction. So this data includes, as I already mentioned, location, timestamp, browser, device type, which website we are from, where we are coming from, ad clicks interaction, and conversion type, which we are doing. So basically, this approach allows for continued data collection while respecting user privacy, which means if the user is denied the consent, we will be still collecting those data. We will be sending cookieless ping. Cookieless, as as our audience might be aware of, like cookie, like for example, GA4. Abhishek, do you know which cookie GA4 creates? If you know.
I think G
Yeah,
underscore
underscore GA cookie GA4
underscore.
creates, and that they every event or every hit that is being sent to GA4 server, they take this cookie as an integral part of that measuring data, which is with the parameter that they are sending CID, so which we call as client ID. So I will explain a little in a short example, like how cookieless pings work. So this is the website. I have just opened the debug tool, and we are seeing the banner, and we are also seeing the application where I have selected the cookie. So in this is the cookie window where we are seeing, you can see that there is no underscore GA yet being generated,
Yes.
right? And we are showing the banner still now. At this point, the
Yes.
banner is being shown to user, no cookie, no underscore GA has been generated, and user for this now, for example, I'm taking example where user have not given the consent for now. So now in
Yes.
the network, we will see a page view is going, the page view hit is going to GA4 server. So, but how are we sending the page view data if the user is not giving the consent? So that's what the cookieless pings. You can see in here, we have a CID, but we don't, which means ideally it should be going in the underscore GA value, but we don't have any underscore GA value. So the GA4 is randomly generating a value here which is neither related to cookie. It is neither stored in local storage. It is neither stored in any session storage also. So that is being generated randomly. And we also have two parameters here, GCS and GCD. Okay. And I will explain that also. So GCS is Google Consent State. So it has a nomenclature which GA4 server uses to get the consent data, like what was the consent data, like what was the consent signal that is being provided by this network hit. And Google uses G10, G11, G110. There are different kind of combination and permutation combination we can make G11, G10, G0101 on the basis of what he's accept like what he has given the consent. So for now, I have not given any consent, so that will be G11, G100.
Okay.
So the GA4 will know that yeah, this is G100. So that means the user has not given consent yet. And although we are getting the CID, but GA4 will not store the CID.
Okay, Anshul, a question raised in my mind. So G100 is consistent if it is not like the user is not
Yes, yes.
accepting the consent.
It will consistent for throughout the journey until they finally decide to accept the cookie or they made some decision
Okay,
about that. Till that,
and yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think you are talking about GCD. So GCD is a pattern. It will show it also has a lot of permutation combination, but it basically shows how the user has given the access or not. Like for the current one, 13P33 3P3, like this one, it is saying that user has not given any consent, and it will get changed once I give the consent. So
and so,
now,
so can we say like if GCS G100 is there, that means user hasn't accepted the cookies,
yes, yes,
but
he has
there
not given
can
any.
be multiple IDs depending on how he has accepted the cookie, whether there is a customized acceptance, whether
Yes.
he has accepted something
Suppose they have
limited.
accepted the cookie first and the consent first, and then later on decided to deny it, then the GCT value will have separate, different kind of
Oh,
sequence that you are seeing. It is just
okay.
giving us what users are like, how the user behaved with the consent manner. So now I'm taking the case where I have accepted the cookie, like the accepted the cookie consent to give to have the analytics cookies. So now you can see the same cookies, the same random ID that we are seeing here is being
Yes.
generated as an underscore GA cookie. You can see,
Yes.
and this is
Yes.
also very useful, like to teach the journey what they have performed before accepting the cookie. So suppose I have performed some 2 3 events before accepting the cookie, and later on decided to have like accept the cookie. Now we will have the journey stage because we already have some random variable before accepting the cookie back consent, and now we have a good underscore GA cookie already in place. So we will have that journey staged before accepting the consent and after accepting the consent. And you can see now the how value got changed. So now we have G111, which means I have given all the consent, and GCD also got changed little bit, and we now have CID. So that means uh, on the basis of this, now GA4 server will say like, yeah, we are getting the consent signal now G111, which means the user have granted the access. Now I will use that CID into my database.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
Yes.
That is really helpful who are
Yes.
looking for the complete journey,
Yeah.
specifically we can say for the e-commerce.
Sure, sure. That
So I
yes,
think we are on the slide for resource for banner references. So I have mentioned one of the banners as cookie eyes, sorry, cookie yes. And there are couple of like I am not recommending it, but I have seen it useful, and you can also have couple of other options as well. So you can I mean to say that you can explore different resources because they have features or varieties of GDPR compliant cookie consent banners. So it's really useful guide for anyone working on or updating their own banners. And in these websites, we can see like real life examples of good examples of banners, and you can get ideas of how standards of user-friendly banners you can create over that. So if you are like looking for some guidance or just want to see how others are doing it, this can be one of the great place to start with.
Okay. So thank you, Anshul, for this detailed explanation on the technical side. That was really helpful. And thank you, Abhishek, for these resources. So now let's also talk about some strategies like what should our audience do next if they want to implement.
So see, we have already discussed a lot of points about it. So what I would say is the first step should be you should understand your websites and you should understand the specific privacy requirement of your website. See, you have to identify the regulations that apply to your audience. Like if you are in a European region, then GDPR will be applied on you. Or if you are in California, CCPA will be applied on you. Or somewhere else, there can be another like other type of regulations. So depending on that.
Okay. So then they can choose. Can we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so then they can choose on the CookieBot or the OneTrust, which are the consent management platforms, we can say. So based on that, they can choose. And I guess if we talk about the complete whole setup of the procedure, so that would take around 2 to 3 days once the client is ready with the complete setup.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I would say don't forget to test and monitor your setup regularly to ensure that everything is working as it should be because it is about data privacy and compliance.
Yes, that is an important point. So, guys, staying updated with the evolving privacy regulations and consent mode is also crucial. In conclusion, understanding the differences between advanced and basic consent mode can make a significant impact on your data strategy and compliance efforts.
Yeah, at last I would say that if you guys have any question or any further assistance you need, we are here to help you. And always remember, optimize your consent strategies is the key to balance the data with user privacy.
Correct. So thank you all for joining us today. We really hope like you have found this session helpful and insightful for you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. I can see a lot of questions that have come up and already been answered as well. So if you have any further questions, please feel free.
Okay, so now let's open the floor for the questions. I guess Suhana has put in one question. Okay, so Suhana is asking, what are some challenges businesses typically face when implementing Google Consent mode, and how can they overcome them? Okay, so hi Suhana, business like if we see they often face challenges to set up the proper configuration and ensuring the compatibility with the existing tags they have in their tag manager. So misconfiguration can lead to incomplete data collection. So specifically if consent is not granted, so to overcome this, it's really important to have a clear understanding of how consent mode works and ensure if it is set up correctly in your Google Tag Manager. So regular testing and consultation with privacy compliance expert can also help like ignoring these kind of issues. So I guess this would be helpful for you.
I think Shrikant's question is also answered, and we are also like running out of time as well. So if you guys have any questions, you can mail to us as well, and if any attended, like directly mail to you guys. And I think someone has asked that can I get the recordings of this webinar? So I think yes, we might upload this on social media platforms, maybe YouTube, LinkedIn, or somewhere else. So yes, you please stay tuned. We have a website, YouTube. We have an account in YouTube. You can go over there and check. We already have a lot of informative videos as well. So it might be a case that we will be uploading this webinar on the YouTube channel as well.
I guess Abhishek, Shrikant has a interesting question. So we
Yeah,
should
I
answer
think
that.
someone has answered from the panelist end already.
Okay. So Anshul, would
I
you
think we
like
can
to
I
highlight
think we
on
can
this?
give our YouTube channel link as well so that the people who have joined can join us on YouTube as well.
Sure, sure. But we can take one question that is very interesting from Shrikant. Like he's asking, like, can we say that cookieless pings sends us session start without a session ID? And yes, that's correct because in consent mode, a cookieless pings can trigger a session start event in Google GA4 without assigning a session ID, even without assigning the client ID. And this occurs when user don't give consent cookies, but a cookieless ping will be collected to have an estimated amount of traffic. And while the session start is captured, the key identifier like session ID, user ID, client ID, and any other user uh, user scope custom dimension will not be collected. So this approach ensures compliance with the privacy regulations while still providing valuable insight because this data will be going to use in the predictive modeling and the conversion modeling on the basis of so yeah, that data is important, but yes, we are GA4 will use this as a anonymized data. It will not have any user level data collected. Shubhang, do you want to have any other question, like, or we covered all the
Yes,
questions?
I guess we have like some time, so we can cover some more questions.
Okay, okay. So yeah, Shrikant is also asking like how much percentage drop in sessions should we foresee before implementing advanced consent mode? It depends on geography to geography, user to user, demography to demography, and it also like depends on, like we have already mentioned, that we have to optimize in we have the consent banner to have maximum, but there is no particular value. Ideally, it can go up to 90% data you will be collecting, or either it can also fall to 30% of data depending upon what audience you are having and how the consent banner is designed. So ideally, we should be optimizing the banner so that they should be clicking on the accept button, so that have to maximize amount of data uh, for analysis.
Yeah, another question I can see is somebody has asked that Google tags loads as soon as user visits website. Does this mean that there won't be a drop in number of sessions if we implement advanced consent mode? So, see, in implementing advanced consent mode is a valuable strategy to address potential drops in session counts. But see, consent mode can't completely eliminate the issue. It allows Google tags to load on page widgets. So kickstarting data collection before users give explicit consent. However, if user opt out of tracking, then their interaction may not be fully captured, it will impact the sessions metric.
Okay, so we have one more question we have. Can you share some best practices to be followed while implementing and maintaining the consent?
Yeah,
So,
I think the best practice will be first understand your website, your audience, and according to your region and your region's regulations, design your website banner and also design it in a way that it is consistent with your website's branding. So that really helps. And on the technical point of view, I think Anshul can add some points.
Yes, we have to make sure ensure that the GTM is properly configured. Otherwise, uh, like first we have to make sure that we already migrated all the tags which is placed on the website itself to the GTM. So there should not be any tags like any marketing pixel or any pixel that is put directly on the website, because GTM cannot control those tags which are directly firing into the website. So first point, we have to make sure that each and every pixel tags should be migrated to GTM. Then we can start the process of implementing the consent mode V2.
okay, thank you, Anshul and Abhishek. So, I guess for the remaining queries, we will reach out to their emails with the answers.
Yeah, or you can also reach out to us if you have any questions to sales@analyticsliv.com. You can directly mail us and we will resolve your all the queries regarding this or anything regarding analytics as well.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.